Hello out there. Welcome to our Scallop Sitter Volunteer Training Module. My name is Ray Bodrey. I'm the Gulf County Extension Director and Florida Sea Grant Agent. I will be accompanied along with this video with Erik Lovestrand, who is our Franklin County Extension Director and Florida Sea Grant Regional Specialized Agent, as well as Scott Jackson, our Bay County Extension Director and Regional Specialized Agent, as well as Bree Stark, our Project Coordinator. So, the Scallop Sitter program is a joint collaboration between the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, or FWC, and the UFIFIS Extension and Florida Sea Grant Program. The goal of this program is to increase depleted scallop population in bays of the Florida Panhandle and even reintroduce scallops into other suitable areas. Preliminary research is being done now in hopes to expand the program to western areas of the Florida Panhandle, such as the Pensacola area. As for the organizational structure of this program, our role as extension agents is to train and manage the volunteer network and to manage data collection. FWC's role is to provide program oversight and supply the scallops and also supply the volunteer equipment. This program is funded by the Natural Resource Damage Assessment as a result of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The program is scheduled to be a 10-year endeavor, but could be extended depending on the need. This is a very important initiative, both through sustaining healthy coasts and for economic reasons. I can speak for Gulf County. Having a thriving scallop population is vital, as recreational scalloping is a driver for tourism and therefore a major component to the local economy. Again, this program is a unique way to get the community involved in restoring scallop populations. Volunteers get their own scallops to place in the bay and care for so that the scallops can reproduce and therefore repopulate. I mean, how cool is that? So now I'd like to introduce Erik Lovestrand. He will be taking us through some history and biology of the bay scallop in Florida.
Thank you very much, Ray, for that background about the Scallop Sitter project. Now let's jump into some of the details about the scallop's life history and the declines in the scallop fishery that led to where we are today. Take a look at the chart on the right side there. This slide kind of outlines a brief history of the bay scallop fishery, and it illustrates the trend that has led us to this point of now actually needing to work on restoration efforts with scallops. In the eastern Gulf of Mexico, the bay scallop once supported a very important commercial fishery that stretched from Florida Bay at the southern tip of the state all the way to Pensacola in the far western Panhandle. This graph of bay scallop fisheries shows the pounds harvested by year, and as you can see, harvests really began to decline in the 1960s. The commercial fishery was eventually closed in 1994, and it has not reopened since then. Only recreational scalloping is currently allowed and in specified zones in our state waters. Suspected causes of the fishery collapse include a combination of habitat loss, diminished water quality from turbidity associated with activities on the land, overfishing has been an issue in the past, and recruitment failures, which means that we're not having enough scallops added during the spawning season to account for population losses each year. So to understand a little bit about scallop biology and ecology, let's run through a scallop's basic life history here. A bay scallop has the remarkable ability to develop female and male sexual organs and thus produces both eggs and sperm. And it's changes in water temperature that really trigger bay scallops to broadcast their spawn. In Florida, most of the spawning occurs in the fall when water temperature drops. Larval scallops are pelagic, meaning that they drift in the water column for about 10 to 14 days. And after going through a couple of different larval stages, they develop into spat, or tiny juvenile scallops. Eventually, they settle out of the water column and attach to seagrass blades using these very thin, silky fibers that they produce called byssal threads. And generally, most scallops will die after they spawn, meaning that they only live between 1 and 2 years in Florida. Next slide, please. So seagrass habitat is crucial for bay scallops throughout their range. It provides a great substrate for juvenile attachment. And if you've ever been scalloping, you know how well they are camouflaged in the grass. So it provides some protection from predators there. Seagrasses require good water quality, and they are often impacted by runoff from the land carrying high sediment loads that can reduce water clarity just to the point that they don't get enough sunlight. Just to name a few other potential threats that scallops face, a naturally occurring red tide event in 2015 devastated the scallop population in St. Joseph Bay in North Florida. Also, large rain events can create a couple of hazards. First, too much fresh water, which actually causes physiological stress for the animals. And second, runoff with high sediment loads, because scallops are filter feeders. Lots of sediment in the water interferes with their ability to feed. The picture on the far right here is a simple, inexpensive handheld hydrometer used by the scallop sitters that Scott will talk about a little more. And they use that to measure the salinity. It's provided in the Scallop Sitter Toolkit that all volunteers receive. Bay scallops do prefer a salinity range between 20 to 35 parts per thousand, and water temperatures around 70 degrees Fahrenheit are ideal. Next slide, please. So we know that bay scallops need really good water quality in order for populations to thrive. But besides that, they still face some pretty tough obstacles to survive in the wild. Besides humans, there are a host of other predators that prey on scallops. Some of the usual suspects include octopi, conchs and other predatory marine snails, cow-nosed rays, and two other species that humans also like to eat, the blue crabs and the stone crabs that live in the environment. Scott's now going to talk us through some of the project details and how the volunteers served as true citizen scientists for this effort.
Spread those out. So earlier, Erik spoke with us and told us a little bit about some of the predators that we encounter when we're doing the Scallop Sitters project. Many things like to eat scallops besides humans. One of the ways that we try to protect the scallops so that they can grow and reproduce is through these exclusion cages. These were first developed by FWC and used in St. Joe Bay in 2016, and eventually handed off to the Scallop Sitters program in 2018. So this cage is really kind of simple, and it's gone through several different models, and as you can see, there's a lot of barnacles on this one. This one was one that was taken at the end of the season, but it's not uncommon to find this type of fouling in the middle of the summer and the warmer months. And this is one of the reasons that Scallop Sitters are such a vital part of the volunteer program in keeping the scallop restoration program moving forward. Their cleaning efforts is something that's really can't be duplicated any other way at this point. So the Scallop Sitters will visit the site, come up on the cage, locate it either at the dock or out in the bay, depending on which type they have, and they'll have this bucket with them. It'll also have a lid. The scallops will be transferred over into the bucket for kind of safekeeping, and this provides shade, especially in those hotter months of July and August and September, and keeps the stress off of the scallops that we're trying to maintain and take care of until they're able to reproduce in the fall and the winter. So we'll actually take some of the tools. We'll usually take these out before we actually put the scallops in and transfer them. But after we see this, a nice stenciling here. And so we just use a hydrometer to actually take the salinity readings on site. We also have a pair of gloves that we issue with each of the buckets so that you don't get cut up on those barnacles like we've seen in the previous video earlier. And we also have a brush that can help us clean the cages. If the scallops are big enough, you can also use this brush on some of the outside shells to remove some of those barnacles, worms, or whatever else that is encrusting on those shells, so that they can manage to open and close and get the proper oxygen they need and food they need, and just maintain the overall health of the scallop. This works really well, especially for smaller scallops. You can actually get down onto some of the grooves in the shell, especially along the where the two shells come together, and remove those so that they can have full range of motion to keep them in shape.
Hi, I'm Bree Stark, and I'm going to be joining y'all this year for helping out with your data collection and also on the Facebook side of things, and just in general be there for answering questions. I have been working with Extension for a really long time, since I was a kid, in fact, but for the past 2 years I've been working with Bay County Extension to help with the Hurricane Michael Marine Debris Removal Program, and we've been cleaning up boats and marine debris from Hurricane Michael. We actually managed to get a $3 million grant. So I've been helping with the back end of administrating that and kind of working with the contractors and that sort of thing. But I've always had a really a passion for our marine environment, and especially here in the Panhandle, because we have so many unique ecosystems that don't exist pretty much anywhere else in the world. So I was really excited to join on this program because scallops are really cool, and I also like eating them. So I thought that would be a good thing to do, trying to restore their populations for our local fisheries. So I'm really excited to join y'all. Now we're going to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect from your data collection in the field. First, you need to decide whether or not you want to take your data collection and do it on your phone directly while you're out, or if you want to write it down and put it in later, just in case you don't want to bring your phone out, you don't want it to fall in the water or something. You're going to be taking salinity samples with your hydrometer, which we're going to tell you about how to use in a separate part of this video. And then you're also going to want to take note of how many scallops you have remaining, if any have died, and any interesting notes about the field and the condition of the scallops themselves and everything like that. And then we would also like to know how many hours around about that this process took you, and if you had anyone join you that isn't part of the volunteer program.
The morning you pick up your scallops is an exciting day for everyone. Long before we get there, the folks from FWC have picked up the supplies and brought the scallops to the different distribution sites. Someone will meet you and register you, collect your information and verify that you've got all of your paperwork taken care of, issue you a cage, and then also the bucket with all the brushes and the materials that you'll need to take care of the scallops, including a hydrometer.
So now let's talk a little bit about the salinity measurement device, which is known as the hydrometer. This is a really nice, simple way to take a salinity reading in the bay. So what you'll need to do is take your hydrometer out and actually dunk it into the bay. Up to your elbow is a good enough depth, somewhere around a foot. Bring the hydrometer slowly out of the water and hold it up in front of your face, and check out the salinity parts per thousand measurement that's on the gauge. That's the reading that you'll need to take. Also, you'll want to tap the hydrometer lightly to make sure any air bubbles are not inside the hydrometer when you're taking the measurement.
The day that you pick up your scallop cages is fairly well laid out, and so each site has its own specific details that we'll provide in our registration materials so that you know and you have a map to go by. For example, in Bay County we have a route that we come around our office and pick up scallops in a line. In the Franklin County sites and also the Gulf County sites, there's a designated area to pick up scallops. At this point, you'll need to take your scallops home and put them into the bay as quickly as possible. No less than 3 hours at the most. Then you'll need to go ahead and use either a boat or use access from your dock to put the scallops into the cage after they've been tempered, and we'll give you some information on how to actually do that. And then put them into the cages and actually deploy them in water that we want to see at least 5 to 6 feet deep at low tide. Tempering is an important step in getting the scallops into the cages and getting them acclimated to their new home. One of the things that we want to try to get you to do is take a little bit of water from the area where you're going to actually put the cages and fill that up about halfway with the water that you receive at the distribution site. Leave the scallops in the water together, and the lid makes a good cover to ensure that we have plenty of shade during this process. And so take about 5 minutes with equal portions of water, and then move the scallops into the cage, into the receiving waters, and you're ready to go. We've learned a lot over the years in the Scallop Sitters program. The water quality data is really important to help us determine where the best success might occur for placing our cages. This is really important in St. Andrew Bay and also in Alligator Harbor. One of the keys that you look for is a great place that has lots of seagrasses, especially turtle grass. Turtle grass kind of indicates a higher salinity overall, even when times are bad. Water depth is also important, as we talked about earlier. 6 feet or more is ideal during low tide, but we also know that some of those parameters also need adjusting at various times depending on your location as far as docks or whether they're actually a bay cage. For St. Andrew Bay, what we're talking about is staying between the two bridges. The Hathaway Bridge on the northwest side and the DuPont Bridge, otherwise known as the Tyndall Bridge, on the southeast side. Between these two areas should give the best locations for cages to be located, whether they're a dock cage or whether they're a bay cage. Likewise, there's a similar issue in Franklin County over in the St. George Sound area. There's a bounded area on this map that we suggest for cage placement. Just because you live outside these areas doesn't mean that you can't support our program. There are also many different ways that you can help. You could partner with somebody and sponsor a bay cage and look after a bay cage in the bounded area that we've described. You could also participate in the FWC Scallop Rodeo that occurs in your area. These provide thousands of adult scallops for the restoration program and are key to our restoration efforts.
Often we get questions about where do these scallops come from that we use in this predator exclusion cages. They actually, a number of them come from our bays, where FWC has a program called Scallop Rodeos, where they allow volunteers to come out once a year, collect scallops, and these scallops are taken to the hatchery, and that brood stock is what's used to support the Scallop Sitter program. Of course, we had a hiatus with our Scallop Sitter volunteer program in 2020 due to COVID-19, but we had a great rebounding year in 2021 as we had almost 100 volunteers come out and support the program, and they managed over 4,000 scallops during that time. Despite challenges with water quality, typically the scallops in these predator exclusion cages begin to die off in the fall of the year. But 2021 was an exception, where we had in Alligator Harbor as well as St. Joseph Bay, scallops remained alive. Many scallops remained alive in those cages until January. Thank you for volunteering for our Scallop Sitter program. First of all, I'd like to invite you to join our Northwest Florida Scallop Sitter Facebook group. Secondly, please join us for our kickoff reception at 9:30 a.m. before picking up your scallops and supplies. This is a chance to chat more about the project and for us to answer any lingering questions. We'll have morning beverages and light snacks to show our appreciation. Now for scallops and supplies, those will be distributed from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. local time. Franklin County's volunteer pickup location will be at the FSU Coastal and Marine Lab in St. Teresa, as Gulf County's pickup location will be at the St. Joe Bay Buffer Preserve Lodge. Bay County's pickup location will be at the Bay County Extension Office. Thank you again for your support, and happy scallop sitting.